Thanks for joining this webinar on budgeting beyond the general ledger in Sage 300 using ORCID modules. My name is Natalie, and today Anne and I will present various budgeting scenarios using optional tables and Info Explorer right back. Before we get started, a reminder that you will be receiving a recording link in the next few days, and you're all in listen-only mode, so you can use the question panel in GoToWebinar to ask any questions you may have. The presentation is about 55 minutes, and we will see you after the presentation for questions. It is this time of the year where budgeting is a popular topic, as many businesses are getting ready for the new calendar year, even in Australia, where the fiscal year generally starts in July. In 2019, we wrote an article on budgeting in times of uncertainty. Little did we know that more disruption to the status quo and more uncertainty was on its way. But even during these uncertain times, budgeting is relevant, as long as it is flexible and nimble. In this webinar, we will present 3 examples of budgeting using Sage 300 optional tables and Info Explorer. We start with budgeting at the general ledger level. To demonstrate an example of a budget process using Excel to read actual figures, and each department uses Excel to prepare their budget. We then use optional tables and its Excel add-in to facilitate the process, as users can continue to use the familiar Excel interface. The budget coordinator uploads everything to Sage 300 and can then use Info Explorer right back for its powerful top-down spread methods. In our second example, we move beyond the general ledger and budget at the project level, where the project is a transaction optional field attached to the general ledger account, and the budget is stored in optional table at the GL account and project optional field level. In our third scenario, we demonstrate using optional tables to budget at the customer and item level. In the first example of GL budgeting, each department receives a report generated with the General Ledger Financial Reporter with the actual data, and a first budget draft based on the department in the General Ledger. They update their budget figures, and the budget coordinator then uses the Excel add-in in optional tables to update Sage 300 department by department. They can then review the consolidated figures and do some further adjustments using Info Explorer. During the year, they can also create new forecasts, incorporating actual figures for past month and budget figures for future month. Over to you, Anne.
And in this video, I'm going to run through using optional tables to store extra information in your Sage 300 database. And in this case, we're going to store a budget associated with the GL account, and to use the Excel add-in to save us having to rekey or import the data from a specially formatted spreadsheet from Excel. And then we're going to use Info Explorer to do top-down revisions and bottom-up revisions and update the Sage 300 company database. In the first scenario, we're going to create our 2023 Budget Set 1. Initially, we're going to use the GL Financial Reporter and create a departmental spreadsheet, 1 tab per department. And we're going to have 2 years actuals, so 2021 and 2022 actuals, and then we're going to calculate a projection for 2023. And we're going to send these spreadsheets to the departmental managers. After the departmental managers have updated their budget, we're going to use the Excel add-in from optional tables to upload the data from the updated Excel spreadsheets back into the optional tables datasets. And we're going to do this department by department. And after uploading the data, we're going to use Info Explorer with Budget Writeback. We're going to open up a cube to view the consolidated budget across the 3 departments. And in Info Explorer with the Writeback license, we can do top-down revisions or bottom-up adjustments or cell-by-cell adjustments, and then upload back to the Sage 300 company database, either back to the optional tables or back to the GL budget sets, depending which way we want to go. Initially, we're going to use the GL Financial Statement Designer to create us a workbook with all the different departments for 2021 and 2022 actual data. And the Financial Report Designer has been used to bring in 2021's actuals, 2022's actuals, and because we're only a third of the way through, you can see the figures are quite a lot less. And this has calculated a projection for 2023 based on our assumptions below on 2021's actuals. So a 10% increase in revenue, a 8% increase in cost of sales, and other expenses of 5% increase. And then we have taken this calculated projection and just divided by 12. And this is the spreadsheet we'll send off to the departmental managers for Department 200, for Department 100, and for those figures which are recorded without a department. And before distributing the spreadsheet, we'll hide up the columns which are the Excel add-in to update the Sage 300 company database with these figures. The departmental managers would then receive the workbook with the tabs that they're responsible for, and they could amend these figures, change the spread by month, change the projected value, and once they're happy, they would save the spreadsheet and send it back to the budget coordinator. Before we can upload those departmental budgets, in optional tables, we need to create an info set for that data to be uploaded into. So we've called the info set forecast. It's associated with the GL account, and it's going to store the budget value. Having created the info set code, you can now go and enter data against that info set. So for our account 4000-1 sales, we can go and enter information. So for 2023 January, we could enter a sales budget of 10. So we could enter all the budget data. We can import from a specially formatted spreadsheet, but we can also use the Excel add-in to load the data from those spreadsheets we had prepared earlier. So starting up Excel with the optional tables add-in, we can see we've got an add-in which allows us to read information from Sage 300 into the spreadsheet and to write information from the spreadsheet back into Sage 300, and some wizards to help us with the formulas. With the add-in active in Excel, if we open up the template that the departmental managers have filled in, we can see we have formulas which will read and write this information from the spreadsheet back into Sage 300 or from Sage 300 back into the spreadsheet. So once we review the template, if we're happy with the departmental with no department code, we can select from the add-in menu to write this information from the spreadsheet back into Sage 300. And we can do this department by department. And if we go now and check that figure that we entered for 4000-1, you can see the January figure was updated as per the spreadsheet, as well as all the other information being entered, and similarly for other accounts too. What we have done so far is use the financial reporter to create ourselves a spreadsheet with 2021 and 2022's actual and a calculated projection for 2023. We then used the Excel add-in and we uploaded this information from the spreadsheet into our Sage 300 company database, department by department. We're now going to use Info Explorer with Budget Writeback to view the consolidated budget, and we're going to use Info Explorer with Writeback License to do top-down revisions and update the Sage 300 database with our newly updated figures. You can launch Info Explorer from your Start taskbar or from your desktop, or you can add it to your Sage 300 desktop. And I'm going to open up my Actual versus Budget GL Cube. And when I click refresh and fill in the associated parameters that I want my fiscal year 2023 and the prior year, it updates Actual and Budget from Sage 300. So here we see our 2022 actuals, our budget that we had for 2022, and the budget that we've just uploaded for 2023. So we could look at this department by department, or we could drag down our division and department and see our information department by department. So here we're seeing our departments grouped up together. But if we drag division here, we will see the revenue for the 3 divisions and our budget for the 3 divisions, plus the cost of sales for the 3 divisions. And these are the figures that we've uploaded from our spreadsheet. If I want to review the 2023 budget in more detail, I could work on a view which is looking at just the 2023 budget and all the individual months. And I'm going to display my column totals as well, so I can see that column total. And at the moment, I'm seeing all the divisions, the sum of all the divisions. I could select to see an individual division here. So now I'm only seeing the null division. Or to make it more obvious, I could drag that division down there and I could see that I'm looking at the null division. If I wanted to, I could turn on all the divisions and I'd see them one grouped with all the accounts grouped one by one below. I'm just going to make my columns a little bit narrower so we can see the total. And if I wanted to adjust my budget month by month, account by account, division by division, for example, I could change this 550,000 to 600,000, but in order to do that, I need to create myself a work set. So once you create yourself a new work set, and you can rename it so you can keep track of what you're doing, I can just go ahead and change an individual number. And you can see that we're using conditional formatting for amended numbers. So the background is pink for those numbers that have amended. So I can go ahead and change each of the sales accounts for the null division. Or if I wanted, I could change at a total level. But if I'm changing at a total level, I need to tell Info Explorer how to spread that total back to the accounts that make it up, or in this case, the periods that make it up. So if I said proportionately, when I change this 6 million to 8 million, it's going to spread it proportionately based on what those individual months first made up of the original 6 million now to the 8 million. And I could change all my accounts, or indeed I could change the total down here, and it will change both my cost of sales and my revenue. So if I change this to 19 million, it's going to change all the cost of sales accounts and all the sales accounts proportionately what they made up of the original 18 million. And I'm currently just amending, I did amend both the null division. If I changed just that total, it would have only changed the null division, but I changed this total here, so it's amended both my commercial and my retail. So I just expand out my commercial and you can see all those numbers that it's changed. Now, if I wanted somebody else to review this revision 1, I could save my cube and send them the cube, and they could see, as long as they had the write back license, they could see these amended figures as well. But if we're happy with this, what we can do is just write back. And this will go and update back to the GL budget set that it was first read from. So we're going to write back to 2023 to budget set 1. And you may have noticed that I switched the credits from our Excel spreadsheet when it was refreshed in this cube. So I'm going to switch it back when it goes back into the GL. When amending numbers at a total level, for example, if I change the 6 million to 8 million, you need to choose what your spread method is. It could be evenly, in which case it would be divide by 12 and put equal values into those months. Proportionately, it would spread back to the months depending on what the values the months were and made up of the original total. You could be updating minimum values only, maximum values only, or you may be doing an average, a percentage increase, or an absolute increase or decrease. For example, increase by $100. For percentage increase, I could say change this 6 million by 10%, and it will up all those numbers by 10%. Or I could say do an absolute increase and add $500. So you choose the spread method which is appropriate to the kind of update you want to do on a total level. After uploading the budget from the departmental managers into our Sage 300 company, we've seen how we can use Info Explorer with the write back license to view the consolidated budget, to do top-down revisions, and then to upload to the Sage 300 company database again. We're now going to use Info Explorer with the budget write back to take the first 3 months of 2022's actuals and put that into our budget set 2. And then we're going to take April through to December from our 2023 budget and put that also into our budget set 2. So we take creating like a bottom-up budget of budget set 2 based on the first 3 months of actuals and the remaining 9 months of budget. We're then going to manipulate that with, we're going to view the consolidated budget, and we're going to do some top-down revisions, and finally create budget set 2 in the Sage 300 company database. Back in Info Explorer, we're going to create a new work set, and we're going to call this one Budget 2. And using our summary view, what we're going to do is to set our 2023 budget set 2 based on the first 3 months of our 2022 actual and then the remaining 9 months of our 2023 budget. So to do this, we first need to set the fiscal periods. So for our actuals, we're going to select only January, February, March. So this 3 million is for the first quarter of 2022. And these are the figures that we're going to copy into budget 2. So I can, in my budget set 2, key in this 3 million and tell it to spread it proportionately to the underlying figures. But this time the spread is, although it's proportional, it's not based on the 2023 year, it's based on the 2022 year, and it's not based on my version budget, it's based on my version actual. So before I change that number, I need to say, when I change my 2023 budget, spread it proportionately against my 2022 actual. So A is my fiscal designator, and in my version dimension, I need to choose actual. So I'm going to spread this budget number to budget set 2, but using 2022's fiscal year and actuals. So now if I key in this 3,123,558.84, it spread those numbers based on the actuals for the first 3 months of the year. So now I'm going to change my fiscal period. So instead of looking at the first 3 months, I'm going to be looking at the last 9 months. And now I want to spread budget 1, this 13 million, into budget 2. So again, I need to change my proportional spread method. I can match the fiscal year because it's both 2023, but I mustn't match the version. I must use budget 1 and the fiscal designator of 1. And now I can go ahead and key in my 13 million. So for the last 9 months, it's 13 million. But if I go back to my fiscal period now and select the whole year, I should get the January figures, January, February and March figures, giving me a total of 16 million now. And again, I can save this cube, send it to somebody else and ask them to review our budget 2. If everyone's happy with it, and if I have the right permissions, I can now write that back. So again, I'm telling it to go back to our GL 2023 and to write to budget set 2. Yes, and I'm going to switch my credits and debits. So it's updated through to the GL. And now if I go into GL, into my account maintenance, budget maintenance, and if I look at our account 4000-1, and this time we're going to look at budget set 2 for 2023. And these are the numbers that we've just uploaded from the Info Explorer cube. We've just seen the example of setting budget set 2 equal to the first 3 months of actuals from 2022 plus the last 9 months of budget from 2023. And we could have manipulated those figures a little further and then updated through to the GL budget sets. In the Spotlight On, we've seen how we can use optional tables to create info sets. In our case, it was linked to the general ledger account, but your info sets could be linked to customer and item, could be linked to vendors for vendor budgets, for customer item budgets, could be linked to locations for location budgets. And you can capture then the budget for those particular master files and use the Excel add-in to update from Excel. Also, in conjunction with Info Explorer, you can do top-down revisions or bottom-up revisions based on the information that's in your cube, and then you can update back to the info set, or if you are doing GL budgets, you can update back to the GL budget set as well.
In our second example, we follow a similar approach, but we budget at the project level, where the project is a transaction optional field attached to the general ledger, and the budget is stored in optional table at the GL account and project optional field level. So we use Excel to create new project budgets. The budget coordinator uses the Excel add-in and optional tables to upload to Sage 300 so that our budget is saved away and backed up in Sage 300, project by project. And then we will use Info Explorer with Budget Write Back to view the consolidated budget of all projects and do some top-down revisions, and update these revisions into Sage 300 optional tables. Over to you, Anne.
Today I'm going to go through how you can use Info Explorer and optional tables to budget at a GL account and transactional optional field level. And the example I'm going to use is a GL account and project code for my budgeting. But why do you need optional tables in Info Explorer for your budgeting? Using Sage 300 and the transactional optional fields, you can record optional fields in the subledgers and flow those through to the GL for reporting. And you can use the financial report writer to report on your accounts by transactional optional field, and you can also write crystal reports to view this data. But when you're using the GL budgeting, you can only budget at a general ledger account level. Optional tables allows you to create info sets to budget below the general ledger account level. For example, you could budget at a general ledger account and transactional optional field level, like a project code, or you could budget at subledger level, like customer or customer and item or vendor. And you can also use the Excel add-in to upload the budget easily into the info sets. And using Info Explorer, you can report on your actual versus budget in a slice and dice way. You can do top-down budgeting, and you can do bottom-up budgeting if you have the Info Explorer write-back license. And this is what I'm going to run through in this video. Budgeting at a GL account level and transactional optional field level, our project, as well as using Info Explorer to do top-down revisions and bottom-up budgeting. In this example, we're going to use Excel to create our new project's budgets. We're going to have an individual tab per project, and we're going to key in and enter these budgets into Excel. We're then going to use the optional tables Excel add-in to upload this information into our Sage 300 company database, into our info set, and we will do this upload project by project. We're then going to use Info Explorer with a write-back license to view the consolidated project's budget. And we're going to do some top-down revisions to amend all the projects at one time and upload that data back into our info set data. Using Excel, we have designed a spreadsheet for all our new projects, one tab for each of the new projects for this particular person who's responsible for these 4 projects. And on each tab, we have the general ledger accounts that we want to budget for at this B0001 Boathouse Long Jetty project. And we can change the projected budget here. And we've used a simple divide by 12 phasing method, but we could have deployed any phasing method or key in individual amounts if that's what we need to do. So we'd send the spreadsheet to the manager of these projects, and they would key in the relevant budgets for project B0001, 0002, and J0001, and J0002. And once they had completed their budgets, they would save and send back to the budget coordinator, who could then upload these budgets. In order to use the Excel add-in to upload the info set, we first need to create the info set. So in our info set codes, we have created a project budget info set. We're going to keep data for multiple years and multiple periods, and the data is associated with our GL account and our optional field being our project optional field. And in Common Services, we have created the project optional field with the relevant values. And having created the info set, we are able to go and enter budget information for those projects. And once we enter or select a GL account and a project, we are able to enter information. And so on, we can enter each period's budget value. But we can also use the Excel add-in to upload this information from our spreadsheets where the data has been entered. With the Excel add-in, we're able to read information from Sage 300 into the spreadsheet. If we want to read the existing budget, if there is one, we can write the information from our spreadsheet back into Sage 300, and we have a number of wizards which help you add the formulas to do the read and writing from the spreadsheet. So the budget coordinator would review this data. If they're happy with Project B0001's budget, they could then upload. And when we click Update, for the project B1, these formulas have been executed. It has updated B1 with these values for these particular GL accounts. And moving on to B2, we can upload the projects one by one. And back using our Sage 300 screen, we can now see that those figures have been updated from the spreadsheet, project by project, account by account. We have seen how we can use Excel to enter our budget and then use the Excel add-in from optional tables to upload the budget that we have created in Excel. We're now going to look at Info Explorer to view the consolidated project budgets and also to do top-down revisions or bottom-up changes to these budget figures. You can access Info Explorer by adding a shortcut to your start bar or to your desktop, or you can even add an icon on your Sage 300 desktop, which is what I've done here. So when I launch Info Explorer, I can open my cube for my GL project budget, and I can see the cube when I last refreshed it. But to update with the figures that I've just imported, I can click Refresh. And here I can see for my budget B0001, here's the revenue account for sales, all the different sales accounts, and my cost of sales accounts as we uploaded from our spreadsheet. If I wanted to see a different project, I could select Project 2, for example, or if I wanted to see all the projects, I could select all the projects, and now I have them one after the other. Or if I drag project up to the top, I would now see a consolidated budget across all my projects. Another way of viewing this data is to look at the projects as columns and our accounts grouped by the account type of revenue and cost of sales. And we could even see that in a more summarized form if that was appropriate. And for the budget write-back, if I have a budget write-back license, I will have this Worksets tab. and I can go ahead and create myself a workset, rename it, so I can keep track of what I'm doing. And now I could change account by account for, in this case, my project B0001. So maybe February should be 600,000 and maybe August should be 900,000. And that should be a credit because I haven't switched my revenue to a positive figure. You can see the amended figures. We're using conditional formatting to highlight which ones we've changed. So we can now see that we have changed both the August and the February figure. And I could continue to change month by month, project by project. Or if I wanted to do a global change, for example, change this 7 million to 8 million, if you're changing at a total level, you need to say how to spread this number back to the underlying transactions that make it up, in this case, the 12 months. I'm going to go and change this to 8,500,000, but I'm going to tell Info Explorer to spread back proportionately. If I said evenly, it would just divide by 12 and give each month an equal amount, but I'm going to say proportionately, so it goes back proportionately based on the months that are currently making it up. So now if I change this to 8,500,000, you can see it's updated February and August with a higher amount, and then the rest of the months with the same value. So I could update all the individual sales accounts, or I could even update at a total revenue account. So let's increase this by 10%. So I'm going to change my spreading method to a percentage increase and type in here 10. So now all these numbers have been increased by 10%. And just as we change all the sales numbers together, we can change all the cost of sales numbers together, or even at this level. So if we wanted to go ahead and say, well, let's change this 15 million to 17 million, and leaving our spread method as proportional, it's now going to spread that 17 million across the revenue and the cost of sales accounts proportionately to what they made up the old total. And I'm still just working on one project at a time. But I could also, if I want to do all the periods, I could say, well, let's just pop period up here and let's look at all our projects. And you can see I've just been amending project B1, but now I could amend all projects at the same time. So if I wanted to increase my revenue across all these 4 projects by 7%, I could change my spread method back to percentage increase and type here 7. So that's increased my revenue by 7%, and maybe I will decrease my cost of sales by 3%. And now with all these amended numbers, I could save the cube and email it to somebody else for checking, or I could, with the correct security access, write these numbers back and update the info set with all these numbers. When the work set has been reviewed and is final, and assuming I have permission, I can click Write Back. And that will update back through into the Sage 300 database and update the info set figures for this GL account code and project optional field budget. We have seen how to use Excel to create our budgets and update them in Excel, to use the optional tables in the Excel add-in to upload the data from Excel into the Sage 300 company. And now we've seen how to use Info Explorer to view the consolidated budget or view the budget project by project, to do top-down revisions and upload back into the Sage 300 company database.
In our third example, we look at a budget by customer and item presentation. Use the same approach to as previously, where we use Excel to create our new budgets by customer and item. The salespeople update this in Excel. We then use the Excel add-in to upload to Sage 300, and we use Info Explorer with Budget Write Back to do some actual versus budget reporting and top-down revisions and upload those revisions to Sage 300. You can use the same approach to budget by category and salesperson, customer and item category, or other combination not available in a Sage 300 General Ledger.
In this scenario that I'm going to do, we're going to create a new budget for our new items. We're going to use Excel and have an individual tab per item, and we're going to budget for our top 10 customers for these 4 new items that we're introducing this year. And we're going to enter this budget into our Excel spreadsheet. We're then going to use optional tables to store this data, and the Excel add-in in optional tables to upload the data easily from Excel. And we're going to do the upload item by item. After doing that, we're going to use Info Explorer to review the consolidated customer and item budget. And with the Write Back license, we're also going to do top-down revisions to amend the budget from a top level down, and also we can amend the budget from the bottom level up, and then upload this amended budget back to our Sage 300 company database in our optional tables. Using Excel, we've created a template for all our new products. For the A1400, we've created a new tab, and here we have our top 10 customers with the customer codes. And in this particular design of the spreadsheets, we're going to enter the projected sales value, we're going to enter the projected sales quantity, and we have used Excel to spread this number equally through the months by 12. So this is the projected sales value over the 12 months, and then we have the projected quantity spread out over the 12 months. And here we have the formulas which will allow us to read or write this information from the spreadsheet back into Sage 300, or if we already have the budget in Sage 300, we can read it into the spreadsheet, adjust it, and re-update it again. So this is for our desk notebook. Similarly, for our halogen desk lights, we've got the top 10 customers, the projected sales value, and the projected quantity, the mini fluorescent bulb, and the halogen desk lamp. So this spreadsheet would be sent to the manager for these particular customers or these particular items, and for them to set the budget for 2023 for these new items. And when the budget process is completed, they can send the spreadsheet back to the budget coordinator to upload into Sage 300. Before we can upload those particular figures, we need to create an information set to store that budget information. And here we have the budget information set, which is linked through to the AR customer and the IC item. And at the customer and item level, we're going to keep track of the budgeted cost, the budgeted quantity, and the budgeted value. And having created that info set, we can go to our Information Manager Transactions, specify our info set, then we can select a customer and an item, and here we can key in the budget. So for January 2023, we can do a budgeted cost, budgeted quantity, and a budgeted value. Once the budget spreadsheet has been returned to the budget coordinator, they can open it through the Excel add-in icon. And this adds into Excel the ability to read the info from the Sage 300 database into the spreadsheet. So if they already have the budget in Sage 300, they may want to bring it into the spreadsheet to amend it, write the information from the spreadsheet back into Sage 300, and some wizards to help you write the formula. So if we open up that budget spreadsheet, after checking the figures, if they're happy, we can go to the add-in and write. And this will bundle up the budgeted sales value and the budgeted quantity from this particular item and then write it back into the info set. And here are the formulas that do that writing. And we can do the same for all the items. Then the A13100. And finally the A14000. And back in Sage 300, if we look at our budget for Barmart A11030, we see the budgeted cost that we entered, but we also see the budgeted value and the budgeted quantity, which has been uploaded from the spreadsheet. And this is for item A11030 for customer 1100. And if we look at one of the other records, for Ronald Black, we will see the budgeted quantity and the budgeted value. We have seen how we can use optional tables to store the budget figures by customer and item. And we've seen how we can use the Excel add-in from optional tables to easily upload the budget. We're now going to look at using Info Explorer, first for reporting, actual versus budget, and then for doing top-down revisions or bottom-up budget changes or creation to the budget figures and updating back into the Sage 300 database. You can either run Info Explorer from an icon on your start bar, on your desktop, or you can add a shortcut on your Sage 300 desktop, and I'm launching Info Explorer from there. And I'm going to open up our customer and item actual versus budget cube. So this cube has actuals for our current years and obviously no actuals yet for 2023. But we can see our sales for the different years. Drag down our year. So now we're seeing the sales and the sales rank of these items over the years. And if we were to drag down our budget sales, we would see in 2023 the budget sales for the 4 new items that we created. And having a more detailed look at that budget, we've got the 4 items with the budgeted sales value for the 12 months. And we can go ahead and create a work set. Rename it so we can keep track of what we're doing. And then we could amend the individual month's values. So I could change February's sales value for the desk notebook to $30,000. And as you can see, we have used conditional formatting to highlight those numbers that have changed. So I could change month by month. Let's change August to $40,000. Or I could change at a total level. So if I was to change this total, 335, to 400,000, let's say, we need to first specify how do we want that total to be distributed back to the underlying months for this item. Do we want it to be spread back proportionately or evenly, divide by 12? Or are we wanting to update minimum values only, maximum values only, a percentage increase, or an absolute dollar value increase or decrease? I'm going to say proportionately, and when I change this to 400,000, you can see the months other than February and August all get the same value, but February and August have an increased value as you would expect. So we could continue to adjust item by item, or we could, for example, if we wanted to increase all the items by 10%, we could take this value, change our spread method to percentage increase, and type in 10 here. We could now save this cube, send it to somebody else to have a look at that budget and see if they agree with the amended budget figures. And when they're happy, or when we're happy, we could go ahead and, if we have the correct permissions, click Write Back. And this will update those budget figures with these amended figures from the cube. We have run through how to use Excel to create your individual budgets, one tab per item to update your new item's budget, using the Excel add-in and optional tables to both store the data in the Sage 300 company database and upload your budgets from Excel, and then how to use Info Explorer to view the consolidated customer and item budget, to do top-down revisions, to do bottom-up revisions, and to upload the amended budget figures back into the Sage 300 company database.
In this webinar, we reviewed 3 budget scenarios in Sage 300 using both optional tables and Info Explorer. Both these modules play an important role, but you can use each module independently. So let's review the features of each. Optional tables lets you store and maintain data in Sage 300 that is not typically available in Sage 300. It relies on Sage's optional fields, and the powerful Excel add-in is an opportunity to use the familiarity of Excel but still store the data in Sage 300. It's great when you start with a blank sheet and users enter their budget numbers in the familiar Excel format, and it can then be uploaded in Sage 300 for consolidated analysis. And it works very well with the FR financial report and with optional GL transaction optional fields. When you combine it with Info Explorer for budgeting, it becomes a very powerful budgeting and forecasting solution. Info Explorer is well known for its analysis capabilities, but in the context of budgeting, it is particularly useful with the top-down budgeting because of its powerful spread methods, proportional to your actual or to another budget set, or to increase across the board by 5% or 10%, the ability to save in the cube and share the cube with other users, as well as the ability to write back to Sage 300 GL budget and optional table data. To start implementing budgeting using ORCID add-ins, you need to consider at what level you're budgeting, how often you reforecast, how many versions of your budget you need to keep. You also need to think of the users who update the budgets. Do they want to keep using Excel? Do they update one by one? Do they update top-down? What kind of rules and formulas do they use? What type of actual versus budget reporting is required? These are some of the elements to take into consideration to build a solid and flexible budgeting process using optional tables and Info Explorer. The focus of this webinar was on budgeting, but you also want to consider the impact on entering the transactions and how to do your actual versus budget reporting. For example, if you're using the GL transaction optional fields, you might want to consider Extender and the inline editing of optional fields to flatten the optional fields and make the data entry of the transactions easier. You can also use ORCID Notes to document the budget and display comments and description from the optional table records in Sage 300 screen. There are more detailed training videos on both optional tables and Info Explorer Write-Back on the ORCID website. You can look at the details in the budgeting, reporting and business intelligence solutions of the website. Thank you for your time. Thank you. So now we've got 5-10 minutes for questions, and we'll start with this is the budgeting and reporting solutions page of the ORCID website, which you've probably seen, and you can see reference to the modules we talked about today, being Info Explorer, optional tables. You can click on that to view more detail, and you can also, if you go towards the bottom, you have linked to all our Learn More video and blog articles. So we will load the scenarios that we went through today on the website as well, but you can also see the training videos here. Some other resources that are relevant for budgeting are particularly in the Info Explorer sample cubes. So if we have a look at that, you can see we've got some write-back samples, which are very similar to the examples we looked at today, where we have your write-back to the GL budget, item projected sales, and also a customer and item budget write-back. If you are looking at the budgeting scenario, which is a bit different from what we've shown you, to amend it for your own requirements, you would need to amend the spreadsheet in optional tables. And for that, there's actually a formula wizard to help you build a formula to read and write from optional table. And using the Excel add-in, there is a detailed training video on the Excel add-in on the website. If you need to modify the cubes, you would typically work at the SQL query level using Info Explorer. Another question we have here is, does all this work when you use the Sage provisioning portal? Yes, it does. All of ORCID modules work on when you use the Sage provisioning portal. Is it possible to consolidate multiple databases in one report? Yes, it is, using Info Explorer, and there is actually an example in the sample cubes among the general ledger. We've got this example here to consolidate GL accounts across two databases using SAM Ltd and ORC Ltd as an example. So you can use that as a starting point, or contact us and we can help you do that. If you are doing budgeting and the write-back would be done one company at a time in separate cubes, but you can analyze in a consolidated manner using Info Explorer. We have a question here on the module licensing. So what modules do we need for budgeting? So we have talked about, and I might go back to the budgeting and reporting page. The core of it is optional tables, which is a Sage 300 module that is part of Information Manager. So you activate it like you activate Information Manager and you get your license for optional tables. And you can look at it in using the ORCID sample data. Info Explorer is a slightly different licensing. It is by machine, so de facto per user. Some users can have just the Info Explorer full license, which lets you do your reporting and your analysis and slice and dicing. And a few users who do the budgeting, who need access to the work sets and to write back to Sage 300, then would use the write-back license. So you can mix and match the full license and the write-back license. For our next question, I will make Anne the presenter. So let me do that quickly. And the question is, can you show us how we can enter optional fields in a grid more easily? So there you go. I think we can see Anne's screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Yes, so if you need to be able to show the optional fields in a grid for more easy data capture using our module extender, you can have a custom script around those grids that you need to display that. So I'll just show you in AP Invoice Entry. So what we've done here is moved or put two optional fields which are configured on the AP invoice detail line. So the entity optional field and the project optional field. So in addition to having them visible in the standard optional fields tab, we've also made them visible in the grid. And you can drag and drop these. And when I close the screen, it'll remember per user where you want to put these fields. So now I can change my optional fields in the grid level, but more importantly, just when you're visually looking at the screen, you can see these. If these are critical optional fields for you, you can see those ones straight away. And this. We've just put two optional fields here. You could have as many as you want put in. And as you can see, they do have the standard functionality of the way the optional field is configured. And this is AP Invoice Entry, and we've added the optional fields on the detail level, but you can do it on AR Invoice Entry, in your GL journals, also on your, you can do it on your, order entry details or shipment details, invoice, order entry, invoice details, and of course the purchase order side too. So you can visually see the optional fields more readily when during the time of data entry.
Thank you. Can't see any other questions at this point. It's been an hour anyway, so thank you for your time. If you have any questions after the webinar, you can contact us on support@orchid.systems. Enjoy the rest of your day, and you will receive the recording of the webinar in the next couple of days.
Yes, have a good day, and thanks for joining, and we'll speak to you next month. Bye.
Bye.